All right, my friends, today is June the 23rd. It's Monday, about an hour into the New York session. Let's do the market outlook and plans for the week ahead. Okay, so you guys are already pretty familiar with the news events that have been going on. I'll cover that here in a second in the macro. Let's just go ahead and dive straight into things. So first talking points for the macro outlook are that nothing dramatic has changed. Still running off the core macro plan, thinking that we trade higher later this year, most likely in Q4. But we are probably destined for more summertime shop/pain ahead of us. So the main, macro plan has not changed at all. So here's some stuff that we need to talk about today, right? So let's first off start with the kind of macro fears and conflict kind of conversation. This really ties perfectly into, our overall seasonality kind of argument. I've seen this play out the last 3 summers in a row. Momentum is lost and, some sort of conflict arises, and that is one of those, primary forces that drives us lower. I don't think that this is any different than that. I think that, we'll probably end up trading lower on the higher time frame, but resolving much, much higher later in the year. The core kind of conversation right now is going to be how low are we going to end up going and how high are we going to bounce off the current, bounce that we're putting in. I'll talk about the bounce part of it in medium time frame. As far as how low we go, I'm really thinking that we're going to be setting up for a higher low. Maybe it's as high as in the 90s, maybe it's as low as into the 80s. I don't really want to try to predict where the macro swing point is going to be. It's really futile to try to guess that, but the main takeaway for that is that I do think the swing point will be a higher low instead of a lower low like we got last summer. Right now, I think that keeping a close eye on the SPX, as long as the SPX remains strong and looks like it's going to recover, I think that Bitcoin is all clear to do so. So right now, we've broken down and we are trading outside of the macro composite structure. We're fighting for reacceptance into it. How we play out this week, right, whether we accept or reject, is going to be a huge, telltale sign for you. If we don't, I think that we're going to accept this range and then reject it the next time and then break down from there. If we don't successfully reclaim the range right now, that is more bearish than my other version and would potentially be taking us lower. So just something to be aware of. So this was my, meme that I put together for you guys. They're the Magstradamus BS, playing out pretty perfectly right now. Right around the corner from Q3. A lot of the Q2 drawdown has probably already come and gone. I think that we're in the process of doing the Deadcat bounce. We'll probably attack the lows again from there. The way I originally drew this with equal lows is probably not. It's probably going to make lower lows from this point, right? Continue to trend down locally as we get through Q3. A lot of people are going to be quitting in the first half of Q3. That's when a lot of people are going to be tired of the volatility trending downward, tired of prices going down, and people will be quitting. And as we get, about halfway through Q3, that's when my idea that you want to really be starting to lock in and focus up again and be, starting to look for that positioning for us to trade higher. I'm sure there's going to be some fake out, some fuck you moves, but higher in Q4, right? That's the main plan. That is pretty much the macro outlook, right? TLDR of everything. We're probably going to chop the fuck out of people and then resolve a lot higher later in the year. That's the main focus, main takeaway for you guys. So you've got, potentially, after we're done putting in this bounce that we're doing right now, probably going to have a little bit more of a wave of pain come through the market. If you can survive that, then you're going to be set up to prosper in Q4. A little bit of medium time frame. So first and foremost, you guys have been hearing me yap for months about the idea of once we got into this area, seeing potential momentum loss, right? And that is very, very clear right now. In order for momentum loss to get invalidated, we need price to successfully get through local resistance right here. So it doesn't matter how you look at this. Everything on medium time frame right now is telling me that local structure is really bearish and that, bulls are not putting up any significant fights right now. So I think that all the bounces that we're going to see are going to be dead cats. That gets invalidated, and if, we actually convincingly get through this area, right, you see all the rolling VWAPs, that, the anchored, et cetera, right, high volume node of the range. If we can get through this kind of area this week, then maybe, bullish optimism is back in the cards, but I don't think it's wise to bet on that, guys. I really don't. I think that betting on Deadcat and downwards continuation most likely is going to play out. Momentum loss is prevalent. Until that gets invalidated, please respect the summertime chop thesis. So we'll go ahead and move over into the altcoin conversation. I'm going to keep this pretty short and sweet because most of these things are pretty dog shit. Hype, just did a really great retest on the quarterly value area high and, local kind of support area. I had a lot of alerts going off when we were trading into 30 and 31 this weekend, so I went ahead and bought a little bit of my hype spot back because I had been feeling sidelined when we were trading up higher, since I was originally selling, basically sub 40 around 38, 39. So bought some of that back. I think that this one looks good. This is basically the only chart that I can be really optimistic on. I did buy Altcoin on the perp, which I've been, I probably should have already just fully closed it out by now because I am in the process of round tripping the last 50% that I didn't sell. I don't think this chart looks bad by any means, but that's really only because everything else looks so bad, right? When I look at this, it's like, okay, it doesn't look that bad because when I compare this against any other coin, any other coin is going to look a bit worse, right? So Altcoin doesn't look terrible, and that's pretty much it for my optimism. I think the pendle doesn't look that bad, it doesn't look that great either, and then nothing else looks really phenomenal by any means. So the core altcoin conversation I wanted to have is that I'm still very disinterested in altcoins across the board. Going to continue to remain throughout the summertime consolidated around Bitcoin. I will change that 100%. If you're unfamiliar with how I kind of view the relationship between altcoins and Bitcoin, please go into my altcoin beta section and watch some of those videos where I talk about the relationship in the early and late range videos so you can familiarize yourself with this concept, because we really want to be tactful about how we deploy on alts, right? Eventually Bitcoin, I'm hopeful that Bitcoin's going to make another substantial leg up higher in this trend, and then that's our little window of opportunity for alts. So that's when alt season is going to happen. A lot of people are going to miss it. It'll be a short window. It might, only be a couple of weeks potentially, but that's when you're going to, really have an opportunity to really print some bread. Do some studying on that and be prepared for it. Q4 is when, that's all going to hopefully come together for us. That's pretty much it for the altcoin talk. I'm going to go ahead and digress from the app there. Hopefully you guys are clear with everything. Let me know if anything was not clear. Good luck and cheers.